The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And we're coming to you tonight on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network. And let me see, and of course, Channel 54 on Simul TV. Our guest this hour is Dr. Craig Hogan. We're going to be talking about afterlife studies, afterlife communication, and much more. And we've had the pleasure of having Dr. Hogan on the show before. And Dr. Hogan, welcome back to the X Zone. Good seeing you, sir.
Rob, it's a delight to be here. It's a different world. Everything is changing, and we know so much more than when I was here before.
Oh my gosh, it certainly has. First of all, thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Hogan. I know how busy you are. It's sincerely appreciated, sir. Dr. Hogan, for the people who haven't had the opportunity of seeing you or hearing you before, would you be kind enough to give us a little bit about who you are and how you were able to come to doing all the great work that you're doing now?
Well, it started decades ago. It was when I was in my 50s, and I started meeting psychics. They were coming into my life, and I had no interest in religion, had no interest in anything having to do with psychics or anything of that sort. And I met them, and they convinced me of the fact that there is a psychic world. There's a world that's greater than the given world that's greater than everything that we see. And so then I found out that I have psychic ability, that I can do remote viewing. I'm able to remote view things in people's desks or in their homes across the United States. And then I found out that there is much more to this reality than what we can see. So that means there must be much more to what happens after we leave this reality. And that's when I started studying the life after this life and afterlife communication. And since then, I have devoted myself to it. I'm on a quest. I'm like the Cervantes, and I'm out there trying to teach the world, to let the world know the truth about what we know now, because we know so much more now than we knew ever in the history of humankind. And people just have to know it. They just have to understand it. So that's my quest now.
In your opinion, sir, what has been the most significant find in the work that you do recently, since the last time you and I talked?
We have now the recordings of people speaking from the life after this life. And we have the recordings that we have made that people are making now. They're making them on a standard tape recorder. And it's much greater than EVP, the standard EVP. This is conversations that people have over the tape recorder. And so we have that recording, but we also have recordings from people who are direct voice mediums and materialization mediums. Now, direct voice medium means that the person has the talent of sitting in a room, and voices will come out of the air or out of an ectoplasmic voice box and speak to the people in the room. And then we have thousands of those recordings now. And it's like they were standing in front of a microphone. So, and the really wonderful thing about it is the fact that we have these recordings from people, loved ones on this side, who met regularly with the medium and would spend time talking like they were talking over the breakfast table with them. And so we have altogether 15 different types of evidence like this. And they're evidence that people are very much alive. They know what's going on in our lives right now, and they're available to communicate with us.
It sounds strange saying that someone is very much alive when on this side of the veil, they're no longer with us. So on the other side of the veil, they're still alive and active.
Yeah, they are active, and they are interested in us, and they come to visit us when there are anniversaries, when there are birthdays, when there are special events. They are there with us at those times. They don't celebrate those things in the life after this life, but they will come to us and they will be part of us. They even go to their own funerals. So they will come to us and they'll be standing among us. They will be speaking to us. They're continually trying to communicate. They want to communicate with us. So they'll come to us and they will try to influence us mentally, telepathically, so that they can get messages through to us. And everyone has this constant flow, sometimes from guides, from angels, from others, but especially from loved ones on the other side who are trying to come through and say, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Stop crying about it. I'm going to be meeting you very soon. We're going to have a wonderful reunion and we're going to share stories about what has happened with us. So we just have to realize that that's true. And the communications that we've gotten through materialization mediums, through direct voice mediums, are proving that that's true. And we've got those recordings.
Now, Dr. Hogan, you were talking before about the way that these certain people can communicate with the other side, that it's recorded on a regular tape recorder.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
I've heard of EVPs, but direct voice.
Yeah. And
who discovered this, and how does it work?
Well, actually,
this is exciting.
Yeah, it's been happening since the 40s. So there's been quite a bit of it. There was a fellow named Rochelle Wright who in Italy, who had an old valve radio, and he would turn on his valve radio and he would make the dial go across the channels. And eventually then he would tune into an individual from the other side speaking through the radio, and they would speak to their loved ones sitting in the room with him. And they'd have conversations about things that Rochelle Wright would have no knowledge of, but they were having conversations about it in the room. The fantastic thing about it is when they looked at the old tube radio, they would unplug it and the voices would still come through. They took the tubes out and the voices still came through. And the reason for that is that it wasn't the tube radio that was making the voices. It was the energy from those on the other side speaking through that device so that they could speak to their loved ones on this side. The EVP, what we used to call EVP or instrumental trance communication, has really grown up. We now are able to have recordings in which we ask a question on a tape recorder. We play in the background syllables of nonsense that have no words in them, play that in the background, record that, ask a question of the loved one in the next plane of life. And then when we play it back, right after our question is their response on the recording. So it's not just a matter of walking into a haunted house and getting EVPs. We're actually asking questions, they're responding, and the responses are always of the loved one who's come in from the other side. So instrumental trance communication, or EVP, has really grown up.
Is this proof of communication between dimensions?
Yes. And when we talk about dimensions, actually, there's only one reality, and we're all in different dimensions of that reality. We're all in different focuses of the reality. So that what happens when we go on from this life into the next life, what we're really doing is just changing focus. It's just as though we had been watching a waterfall and we turned around and we saw a hillside. We're in two different focuses. And it's as easy as that. The transition from this life is very easy. Anyone who makes the transition, they communicate back to us and say, there's nothing to worry about. This is an easy transition. I didn't even know I made it. And here I was on the other side, and I was with my loved ones there. And so then we would start to have conversations, and I'd finally realized, yes, I've gone on and into the next life, and they're ecstatic. And what they want to do more than anything in the world is they want to communicate back to us. And they want to say, everything is fine. Don't fear the transition that we call it death. There is nothing to fear. When that transition occurs, people who are in terrible accidents, like automobile accidents, and they don't feel pain. They're taken out of the accident scene before it happens. And they're not part of it. They have no pain involved in it. So the transition is very easy to make. And people on the other side are telling us, don't worry, stop fretting about the passing of the body. It's not important.
So basically the meat suit stays behind and the spirit and soul does the crossing.
That's all that's really real. The spirit and the soul is all we are. We are eternal minds. We're spiritual beings. We're in one spiritual plane now. We'll go on to a next spiritual plane, and it's just a matter of changing signals. So then, as you say about the other dimensions, we can call these other dimensions, but they're just the same change of focus. So they refer to them as being other eternities or other globes or other planets. But they're all simply one part of our universal intelligence, and we just change focuses from one to the next. And we can do that in our lives now. I mean, we can sit down and learn how to relax and communicate with our loved ones by going into that change of focus in our minds, so that we don't go anyplace, but we have that change of focus and they're able to communicate to us.
So would this be like meditation?
Meditation is one way of doing it. So all you have to do is sit down, relax, and what you're doing is you're shutting out the physical world. The part of our minds that is the awareness part is very small. It's an infinitesimal part, and that part of our lives really takes over and keeps us from getting what is there in great form, in very substantial form, which is the subconscious. And these messages that we get from our loved ones on the other side are coming up, bubbling up through the subconscious into that little tiny area of our awareness. Now, normally what happens in our daily lives, that little area of awareness is just filled. We're listening to things, we're hearing things, we're doing things. And so it doesn't have a chance to allow those things to bubble up from the subconscious, which is where their communication is coming from. If we can learn to relax the physical world and just let that part of our awareness sleep for a while, then those will bubble up from our subconscious. And meditation is a way of doing it.
All right. If changing focus is all it takes in order to communicate with the other side, is it possible for the other side to have a change in focus and come back to this side?
Yes. In fact, we have many instances in which people have spontaneously appeared to people on this side of life. There are two ways in which it happens. One is spontaneously, just out of the blue. There they are. They're sitting over in the room across from you. They've been dead for 2 years. Or in materialization mediums, where a medium sits in a room and has this energy, this ability to allow people to materialize in the room and speak to people. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, whom most people will know, she has credentials that amaze. She was one of the 100 most influential people in the world. And she had a woman come to her while she was walking down the hallway in the University of Chicago. And the woman said, Dr. Kubler-Ross, I'd like to speak to you for just a few minutes. And so she walked down the hall with her towards her office. And she said it was the longest walk she had ever taken in her life, because she knew that this person who was walking with her was Mrs. Schwartz, a patient of hers who had died 2 years before.
Oh my gosh.
So she walked down the hall with her. They entered Dr. Kubler-Ross's office, and the woman had a conversation with her, and she said, please don't give up your work. Your work is very important. Stay with your work. And then Dr. Kubler-Ross had her write a little note to someone else, one of the other faculty members, so that she had something in her handwriting with the signature. And when the woman finished her conversation, she got up, she opened the door, walked out. Kubler-Ross ran to the door because she wanted to see who was out there. She looked up and down the hall, and there was nobody there. We have many of these instances of people spontaneously coming from the life after this life, and it's because of the fact that we are part of a universal intelligence. So that when we this is not a matter and energy world that is dead and full of stones and planets and the things that happen by accident. This is a world that's made out of intelligence, which is consciousness. Consciousness is the basis of being. That means they can change the rules anytime they want. And so if they decide to come through, then they do.
All right, doctor, please stand by. I can't change the rule of commercials, so you and I will be back. Exonation, our very special guest this hour is Dr. Hogan. And if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Hogan, visit seekreality.com or afterlifeinstitute.org. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away. We'll be back right after this very short break. Are you ready? Because here we go. Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Craig Hogan is our special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Hogan and the work he does, seekreality.com or afterlifeinstitute.org. Doctor, is it possible that what we're talking about this hour would explain the ghosts that ghost researchers are actually see that they're these images or these spirits from the other side trying to communicate with us.
Yes, there is a great variety of them. So that there are, for instance, at a battlefield like Gettysburg, then there are battles that are being reenacted, and many people see them.
Yeah.
Those are called memories on the ether. So those are memories on the substance that is part of consciousness. They're not individuals. They're not spirits. They can't communicate. They do the same thing over and over and over again. They're memories on the ether. So the second thing that we have is we have people who are earthbound. And the people who are earthbound, they've gone out of the body. They're not using the body anymore, but they're still staying on the earth plane. So they're doing the same things they would normally do. They walk around, they ride in buses, they take elevators, they do all the things that normally would do. And they do that for a number of reasons. Some of them are confused. They just don't know what to do next. Some of them just can't leave the earth plane. They may be afraid of going to hell. And many of them have unfinished business that they need to stay here for. So those people then will do things like become poltergeists. They will want to get people's attention. They just want to say, you don't see me, you don't hear me, and it's driving me crazy. So I want to do this. I'm going to move things in the kitchen. I'm going to do something that'll get your attention. So they become poltergeists. And there are other people who are, when we see an apparition, a person who is coming into a room, and that apparition has solidity to it, they are rather like the appearances, like Dr. Kubler-Ross says. Those are real people. They are real individuals who have been able to come into the room for some special reason that is affecting our lives for some reason. And so then they're able to come. And the final group of people who come that we say are ghosts are the people who are able to come for specific, very important reasons. They're able to come and materialize in front of people. They materialize sometimes in seances. They materialize sometimes spontaneously. And they've been given a mission to help someone on this side of life. And so then they're able to materialize. So there's a great variety of these things that we call ghosts, but there are many different types.
How does this challenge religious beliefs?
Religions were based on the need for humans to understand what is going on with life and what is going on when people leave this life. And so they're desperately trying to understand. And so some people come up with very good ideas about what they believe is true. And then they write those down, and those become codified. And then a lot of other people come to believe them. And then they form a religion. There are 41,000 religions. 4,100 religions in the world today. Among the Christians, there are 38,000 sects within Christianity. Every one of them has a different explanation. So they have developed these explanations, really trying to understand what's going on. And so not any one of them is going to have any sort of truth. But what we do have today, we have these statements and testimonies and all of the reports coming to us from people living in the life after this life. These are the residents of the life after this life. And we have thousands and thousands of them now. Part of the reason we have so many is because we have communication devices, so we can record them. They couldn't do that in the past. But now that we have communication devices, they're taking advantage of it, coming through, giving us communication, and that's teaching us about the life after this life. And so that's the reality. And no religion then has really a handle on that. It is coming to us directly. Every one of us can learn it. Every one of us can have the experiences all by ourselves. We don't need a religion.
What happens to people who take their own lives in the afterlife? Do they go to hell? Are they banished, or what happens?
The hell thing is a terrible mythology. It was developed in the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Christian church, and it was developed to keep people in line. The people at the time wrote that. The people who were outside of the religion wrote about the Christians, saying they have this hell thing. It's to keep their parishioners in line. And the other reason is that they were telling people that you should believe in Jesus. It was important to convert them. And so they were going to be saved, but they had to be saved from something. So they created the hell myth. Hell is a terrible mythology. It became more and more inflamed as the centuries went on into something which is a horrible belief. And the unfortunate thing is 67% of the people in the United States today believe that there is a hell. And so we have to eradicate the myth. There is no hell. We have the reports from people coming through from the other side. None of them say that there is such a place as hell. It simply doesn't exist. So when a person commits suicide, when they take their own life, they've truncated their life. It is not in their life plan. That was not planned for them. But when they take their own life and they go to the life after this life and they have their loved ones all around them, they come to them and spend time with them, they are met with great compassion. They've been through an awful lot, whatever has created. If it wasn't because of a physical disability that they needed to leave behind, they have had a real problem. And so there is much compassion for them on the other side. The difficulty is they also know they can then see what's happening to people on the earth, and they see them weeping and in grief because of the fact that their loved one has gone, and that they take it on themselves. They feel guilty because of it. And so it is not a wonderful time, but their loved ones on the other side take care of them. They're met with great compassion.
So what does happen during the time leading up to death, and what happens after death?
In the time leading up to death, there are two different categories of deaths. One is the sudden death, when there's an accident or there's something happen in war. So there's that immediate, very quick death. And the other death is a slow death in which a person is ill for a long period of time, or they're elderly and they're going to pass just because they've finished their time on earth. If they are suddenly taken out of the physical realm, then they very often will continue with what they were doing before they were taken out. There's a story of a man who reported from the other side, and he was in World War I, and he was a British person, and he had gotten out of the trenches and was rushing towards the Germans and was firing his rifle, and he kept firing and firing. And as he went towards the Germans, they started going past him. They didn't even know that he was there. They didn't notice that he was there. And it was a great mystery to him, but he got to the other side. He jumped in a foxhole and fell asleep. And then he woke up, and a soldier whom he knew had been killed months before came to him and explained to him that he had passed away. He was going on with his life just as though he had been in a body, but he was not. He was just, it was his mind, his soul. But if a person is after a period of time, after a long period of time, they've been ill, they're going to make the transition, they're elderly, then what will happen is the loved ones from the other side will come to them. They actually will see visions of them in the room. This is very, very common. As one estimate is as many as 50% of the people who are lucid at the time that they pass have these visions. So their loved ones come to them, and they very often are up in a corner of the room, and they beckon to them. They put their arms out as though there's somebody there. They have conversations with them. They have dreams of them, so that they're helped with that process of going over to the other side. If they are in a condition where the body is in trauma, the body is shaking and obviously in pain, and the person is not in that body when that happens. When they're already passing, when they're already out, then they're not, that's just the body that's doing that. It isn't the person. The person's already out. So then that transition occurs, and the transition is very easy, and they feel wonderful afterwards.
So why do you think that life is set up the way it is, Doctor?
Life is set up this way because we are here to learn lessons, to grow in love and compassion, and to enjoy our time here. And all we have to do in order to fulfill our purpose in life is to go ahead and stay with the lessons. If we have a lesson that we're learning, if we're having a struggle, if we're trying to get through something, stay with it, come out of the other end. And after that, then we'll be successful, and we will have learned something from it, and not give up, but always stay with the struggle. And because the second thing is that we are here to learn how to love and be compassionate. And if a person's having difficulty with their life and they don't feel like their life is worth anything, and they wonder why in the world they were given this terrible life, what they need to do then is that they need to find everybody they can to show love and compassion to. They need to volunteer at a hospital, and they need to find people who are living alone and would like to have companionship. They need to go out of themselves to have love and compassion for other people. When they do that, they grow out of that feeling of loneliness and that feeling of being despondent. And so the third reason that we are here is to enjoy it. This really is paradise. The wonderful things that we have here are the things that we should take advantage of. We should allow them to come into our life and enjoy them and not feel bad about enjoying the fruits of this life. And then in the next life, then we'll continue everything that was wonderful about this life will continue in the next life. But we're here to enjoy ourselves while we learn lessons, while we go through struggles, while we overcome the disappointments and the frustrations.
How long are we in between lives?
There's a misconception about reincarnation and between lives.
Okay.
We grow up in Earth School. We acquire everything about our personality. When we started off as infants, we were tabula rasa. We were blank slates. We had nothing. So we grow up in Earth School, and we gain a personality, we get attitudes, we get feelings, we get desires, and those become the person that we are. That person that we become stays the individual that we are when we go into the life out of this life, when we change our focus into the next life. And we will stay with that personality through the rest of our lives, through the rest of eternity. We don't reincarnate. What happens is that our higher self, we are part of a higher self that has many personalities involved. And the higher self then will have fragments from other personalities that they'll bring into the planning for an individual, so that an individual who's about to be born and is going to go in through Earth School will have a framework from someone else who lived in the higher self, or pieces or bits of what they had, because they want to learn these lessons. They want to learn them, and this other person didn't learn them. So then that framework that comes into this life is one of the other individuals in the higher self who is still remaining an individual. And that's where we have the pre-death, pre-birth images, the anything in a regression, a past life regression. These are coming from those other frameworks that are part of who we are. So there really isn't a life between lives. We go from this life into the next life, and in that life we continue our growth. But it's a wonderful life, and we stay with it. We can be there for thousands of years if we want, but there is no real life in between lives, because there really is no reincarnation of an individual. We as individuals stay individuals throughout eternity.
All right, Doctor, stand by. We've got to take a break. And X-Zone Nation, I'll be back with Dr. Craig Hogan on the other side of this very short break. Once again, to contact Dr. Hogan or to find out more about the great work he does, visit seekreality.com and afterlifeinstitute.org. I'm Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break with Dr. Hogan. Don't go away. Dr. Craig Hogan is our guest. I'm Rob McConnell. And Doctor, let's say somebody... I'm not going to say let's say, when somebody passes and they go to the other side and they communicate with us, while they're on that other side, they haven't gone into a new life yet. Am I correct?
Right. They don't go into a new life ever. They will stay the individuals that they are. We have had records of people coming through from the Roman Empire. Confucius has come through from the other side. We have people who have said in a book by Anthony Borgia, a medium, that he had people that he met there who were there for 1,000 years when he met them. And from there, then they will continue to grow, and they will become more and more celestial. In other words, then they will become more the individual that we would think of as an angel or God, but it really is just the individual becoming more and more loving, more and more compassionate. So their entire being is love and compassion.
Are they able to go back and forth in time?
Yes. So what they actually they can go to an incident that, if you wanted to go to Elizabeth I's court in the 16th century, then you could go back there and you could observe what was going on. You can't interfere. I mean, you can't do anything about it when you go there. You can't become a participant, but we can relive incidents in our own lives. So they do permit us to relive the incidents in our own lives, but they are, in a sense, rather like a stage show. It isn't that you're there and you're changing things, but you are reliving it and you're doing things differently to see what would happen. And so we do have the opportunity to do that. It's a wonderful opportunity. These are all things to help us to grow. That's the purpose of it. So we're continuing to become more loving, more compassionate, and more wise as we go through eternity.
Fascinating. Truly fascinating. You sent us some information about a new organization called Seek Reality Online, intended to teach people who currently know nothing about the afterlife and afterlife communication about the realities we know to be true. Tell us about that. That sounds like a wonderful thing.
We had several years ago begun the Afterlife Research and Education Institute. And what we were trying to do with the Institute was to help people who were teaching others about the realities that we know to be true. And we found out that we really were helping these researchers and these educators do that work. But we realized that if we're really going to have an impact to really help people to understand and make a change in humankind as a result of that, then we needed to bring the message directly to everyone in the public. We needed to let them know what it is like in the transition, what life is like in the next life. And so we formed seekreality.com. Seekreality.com has videos, instructions, articles. We're going to be having Zoom groups in which people can get on and ask questions. And we're going to do everything that we can to spread the word, to help people to understand the realities. There should be no fear of death. There should be no fear of death. And we have to eradicate that problem of the fear of death, and the fact that people feel like at the end of their life they have to get hooked up to huge machines in a hospital to live a few weeks longer, when they could be at home and they could do their passing with their loved ones. If we didn't fear death, we wouldn't have that problem. So our goal in seekreality.com is to help everyone, help as many people as we can get to understand the realities, so they lose their fear of death, they treat other people differently, and they really look forward to the experiences that they're having now and the experiences that they'll have after they make the transition.
If the information is put out there as you would like it to be put out, that you don't have to fear death, and people learn about what you and I have been talking about this evening, isn't that opening up the door to the possibility that people will take their own lives knowing there's no consequence, and that they believe what they're doing will get them to the other side faster, and that there will be no consequence for their actions?
Yeah, that's a common question. When a person understands this, when you really understand the fact that you are a spiritual being, you are an eternal being having a physical experience,
right?
It changes your viewpoint. Then you no longer feel that you need to leave this realm. You're willing to follow through with it and stay with the people whom you love. You're growing in love and compassion. So if you really understand and know what the afterlife is like, and that it is a wonderful world that you'll be entering, then you also will know that you have things to do in this life, and you need to stay here with your loved ones and stay with them in love and compassion and continue to grow with them. So that's concomitant with that understanding about the afterlife.
Let's take an example of somebody who has had a history of drug abuse. They're homeless. Their families have disowned them. They look at a life that is marginal. They say, well, wait a second. I just heard about this where I can just cross over. I'll have it made. I don't have to worry about eating. I don't have to worry about pain. I don't have to worry about anything. And they take their own life.
And that is one of the things that people do believe, not because of what we're teaching, but they just the reason that people take their own life is that they believe that this will help them to escape from a life that's miserable, that they want to be out of, and they're not worried about what happens next.
But is it possible that this will open up a greater opportunity for people to think that way?
And if the person really understands that if they have no fear of death,
Mhm.
they have no fear of what's going to be happening, and they realize that they're going to be entering a life after this life once they leave here, then they are not going to want to then take their own life, because they'll realize that there are things that they have to do here. There are people they have to meet. The other thing that must happen in our culture is not only does the individual need to understand this, but our whole society does. Our society is spiritually backward. And so then a person who is homeless or a person who's having a difficulty, they should be able to go to people who show them love and compassion. They should be able to. The churches, unfortunately, are not the places to go. Here we go, have these buildings and all these officials of these churches, and people don't feel like they can go there and have their needs taken care of. They should. And if society changes, if society becomes more loving and compassionate, then we won't have people who are destitute. They'll have people who can hold them up. And that's what we're looking forward to. As we change humankind, people will change.
I would love to see that happen, Doctor. However, when you look at the world the way it is now, it is a money-based existence.
Yeah.
How is this going to affect those who look at the bottom line and not their spiritual lives?
Yeah, we're very far from that. And it's unfortunate, but we could have that's heaven on earth right now if we wanted to have it. So we've got a long way to go before we have the kind of society that we would like to have, where the people are concerned about each other, where they are doing things for other people more than doing things for themselves, where they're willing to give anything of themselves to other people in service to other people. We have a long way to go. So you're right about the fact that right now we have a world in which we have to have police, we have to have people who are who have soldiers, we have to have judges, and we have to have all of these things to keep people from creating havoc for other people. That's a terrible situation. We need to get to the point where we don't have those sorts of needs, and that will happen. Society will get there, but it'll only get there if one individual at a time, people realize who we are in eternity, that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, and that we are concerned and compassionate, and we love other people. And when we get to that point, then society will change. But right now, you're right. It's a quagmire.
Yeah.
This is not pleasant. We got a long way to go.
I believe so, sir. I wish there was a way to take a shortcut.
Yes.
You and I have to take our final break. Dr. Craig Hogan is our special guest, and there's two websites, Exonation. The first one is seekreality.com and afterlifeinstitute.org. We'll be back. Don't go away. And welcome back. Dr. Craig Hogan is our special guest. First of all, Dr. Hogan, thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. And I must say that the research and the findings and the proof that you've come up with, it's astounding.
Yeah, it's not a question anymore. So people used to say, well, you had to wait till you died to find out what happens after. That's not true anymore. We know for a fact what happens when we leave this realm and go into the next one. All the evidence is there. And it's not just the evidence of the fact that we have people coming back from that life and talking to us, and we have recordings of them talking to us. It's not just that. We also know that this life is not made up of this limited material realm that we believe is the solid realm, that there's much more to it than that. We have things like remote viewing, where we can sit and we can see things that are far distant from us.
Right.
We have things like psychics who are able to tell us about a crime that occurred. We have all of these indications that this life that we see that looks like it's just matter and energy, that it's just the solid stuff that's around us, is not all there is to this life. There's much more than it is. And the reason or the result of that is the fact that we know that we are going to continue after this life. Everybody's going to continue. There's nobody who's not going to. And there is no such thing as a hell. We can look forward to that life after this life when we can breathe. But we've got things to do here. We have lessons to learn. We have people to love, and we have things to enjoy. And we should be enjoying all of these things in this life without worrying, because we don't have to worry about the eventual thing. It's all going to work out in the end.
If we are to enjoy ourselves, learn, and we go, and when we pass, go into the next realm or the next parallel universe or to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What is it all for? Like, what is the final mission?
The final mission is for us as individuals to become more loving and compassionate, but then also to live in a society full of individuals who are loving and compassionate. If you can imagine what it would be like on Earth, which we're very far from this, but if you can imagine what it would be like on Earth if all people were more concerned about other people than themselves, they were seeking to find ways of taking care of the other person's needs more than their own. And if every person were like that, then we would have a heaven on earth that would be wonderful. We'd have all of the wonderful things that we have, all the experiences, and we'd also have loves and joys and peace with other people. Just the fact that we can imagine that, we know that that could be true, is an indication of the fact that it is possible. And that is what we would enter when we enter the next life. But we can have that in the earth realm. It's up to us as individuals to become all we can become individually. But then as we become different individually, we change humankind. And the result is the objective is to change all of society and all of humankind, so we don't have conflict and wars and these sorts of things, and have much more love, peace, and joy with each other.
You said the next life.
Mm-hmm.
When do we get to the next life? Or are we talking about the life on the other side of the veil as the next life?
Yeah, it's what we call the afterlife, but it really isn't after, because we're in a spiritual realm right now. We just change focus to another spiritual realm. So when we go on to the life after this life, or the next life, or the realm after this realm, then what we're doing is we're just changing focus from one to another. And we can still come back to this realm. We're able to communicate with people who are living here once we've gone on to the next realm. And we can communicate with them. So we can still have communication. It isn't that there's a veil. It's just that we haven't learned how to communicate with them. But they're available, and they're anxious to communicate, and they're trying to get through to us. All we need to do is to learn how to relax and do that. We actually developed a training program. It's a free training program that's online that teaches people how to go into the state of mind in which they can have these afterlife communications on their own. And it's at afterlifeinstitute.org/self flew out of my head. Self-guided. And if you go there, then you can learn how to do that. We also have psychotherapists who are now helping people to enter that state of mind. So we have a psychotherapist named Allan Botkin who does an Induced After-Death Communication, a psychotherapist named Rochelle Wright who does a Guided Afterlife Connection, and a psychotherapist named Jane Bisler who does a Loving Hearts Connection. And all three of these psychiatrists are able to help people sit in their office and have afterlife communications. So it's possible for us to do that. We can do that anytime that we want to. We just have to learn how.
What would you like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight, Dr. Hogan? What is your final thought? What is your final message?
The final message, the important message for everybody, is that you do not need to fear death. It's just a transition, and you'll learn how not to fear it, how to realize what's going to be happening if you just learn what life is like on the next life and what happens at the transition. We have all of the records from people from the other side who've come back to teach us about it, to tell us what it's like there, to tell us what happens during the transition. And if you just will open up and look at the literature and look at the videos and look at the things that we have on seekreality.com, then you will eventually learn those truths. And once you have that conviction, once you know that that's true about life and about the life after this life, then you will no longer fear death. You will no longer be concerned about your loved ones who have gone on before you. Your life will be much richer. And then you can start to enjoy life, learn lessons, and continue to learn and love and compassion.
Dr. Hogan, our time has come where I have to say so long to you. As always, great pleasure talking to you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break at the top of the hour, X Zone Nation, as we go into hour number 4. And our guest is Ralph Ellis. Fascinating conversation with Dr. Hogan. And man, can you imagine talking to your deceased loved ones? That would be quite cool, wouldn't it now? Once again, if you'd like more information about Dr. Hogan, visit these 2 websites, X Zone Nation. One is seekreality.com, and the other one is the afterlifeinstitute.org. I'll be back at the top of the hour when my guest is Ralph Ellis, so don't go away.